everyone, welcome to your Yoga Fit Restorative Teacher Training. I am your trainer, Skyla Ramirez. Let's get started with our morning master class. So you'll see that I do have a couple of mats set up behind me. This is going to provide enough floor space for us to spread out for comfort. Also, I recommend that you have at least one yoga bolster, 3 or 4 blankets, and maybe even 2 yoga blocks or a chair just in case. So we're beginning today in child's pose, and really the essence of child's pose is that it's a forward fold. So if we know that there's any sensitivity in the knees at all, you're welcome to take any standard forward fold that's comfortable for you. Beyond that, I am going to demonstrate a basic setup for child's pose for us to move into a little breathing and relaxation. So let us begin. So first comfort that I like to have in child's pose is a folded blanket. And we could always take this blanket underneath the ankles and the knees so it's moving along the shins. And then as you sit back, notice if you feel more comfortable having your knees together or open. We could always use a couple of yoga blocks to create a ramp effect. So maybe we put one yoga block in the tallest position and then another yoga block in the medium or second position. And we could take our bolster, creating a ramp, and then bringing this in or moving in towards the bolster. And just making sure that this structure feels pretty sturdy to support the body. From here, we could always walk the hands down gently. If you feel that there's any sort of dropping or flattening in the low back, you might want to bring in an additional blanket or even a pillow. We do want to promote a little bit of rounding in the spine as this is more neutral for the thoracic spine. So I'm just filling in some space here by the belly. And now as I come down, I'm noticing I still have a little space right here and I feel a little bit of a drop or a flattening in my back. So I'm using another blanket stacked on top. And now as I come down, I'm able to soften through the upper thoracic spine. Arms can go underneath the bolster if that's comfortable. We could even take the hands behind us if that feels good. Sometimes it even feels good to reach up overhead and just let the hands drape over the bolster. Now, if you're noticing that you would rather come down flatter towards the floor, you could take the blocks away from this bolster, maybe keep the blankets, and just reposition as needed, and come down into lying, just straight down onto your bolster. So go ahead and take your time. Give yourself at least a couple minutes to experiment with setting up for child's pose. And just know at any time, move when you want to move. Let the body fidget. This might be the first time that we're really moving the body towards stillness today. You have plenty of time to change your mind, to grab other props. We're going to be here maybe about just 5 or 6 minutes once we get settled into the pose, allowing the body a little time to get acclimated to the breath. You can turn your head to one side. You can have the head at neutral. As we begin to embrace some stillness in the pose, draw awareness to the breath, especially along the back and the sides of the lungs. Once we find the breath, practicing a sinking breath. We may even in our minds as we inhale count 1, 2, 3. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's take at least a couple quiet minutes to establish our own personal rhythm with the breath. Maybe stretch the breath out even more. Maybe even doubling the length of the inhale in relation to the exhale. Inhaling for about a count of 3, and maybe exhaling for a count of 6. Soften the jaw. Breathe out from the throat. If you have your head turned to one side, you could always turn it to the other side. Maybe just embrace that bit of a neck stretch. Maybe just a couple more minutes here in the pose. Long exhales, stretching out the breath. Notice the breath moving to the backs of the lungs while we have the belly gently compressed. We might even begin to practice 3-part breath on the inhale, breathing down into the low back, through the ribs, and then up under the shoulder blades. As we exhale, we soften the shoulders, soften the ribs, soften through the low back and hips. Check in with the body. At any time, if we're noticing distracting sensations, maybe examine that just for a moment. And is this the body telling us that it wants to move? If the knees start to get tender, we can shift at any time. We only have about another minute here. If we're considering staying in the pose longer, you could always jump into any other pose. You could just stay where you are. You might even just do this for the whole class. Really, any of the postures that I introduce here are for you to choose whether you want to stay longer or change your mind at any time. So stay here if it feels good for you. You can always come back and watch this video again. If we're thinking of trying the next pose, let's deepen our breath and maybe turn the head to neutral. Let's hang the head nice and loose. Slowly walking the hands in. Give our spine a little time to reset. When you're ready, maybe taking some of these props just over to the side. Taking our time to transition. We may want to take a rolled up blanket or even a nice firm pillow and use that to create the foundation for our next pose. So I'm going to take my blanket and take it out so it's a little bigger. And from here, I'm going to take the fringe side and roll that in. And then book it over so it's not exactly a roll per se, but it's more of kind of like this long flat structure, and it's about anywhere from 6 to 8 inches in length. What I'm hoping to do is put this above my hip through the side waist, and it might even graze against the bottom rib a little bit. So let's feel that we have some props close by that we might want to use for propping in a moment. I'm going to have my one bolster behind me. We might be using this in a second. And then I'm going to have either an extra pillow or a blanket to put underneath my head to provide a little head and neck support. As I'm coming down into side lying, feeling that most of this prop is behind me. So you'll see it's nice and long behind me. So I just have a little bit of a fold in the front of the body. And as I'm lying down, I have this little elevation of a pillow or a blanket. And I'm just going to slide my shoulder blade out from under the body. This way I'm not putting all the pressure onto this connection of the arm bone up into this clavicle region. Now from here, we can keep the knees bent and maybe just take that top arm and sway it a few times over. So we're in a side lying lateral flexion for the body. Inhaling that arm over, coming down as far as the arm or the shoulder permits. Inhaling as we lift the arm. Exhaling to lower, matching movement to breath. We could always shorten the lever length with this, so maybe we're just moving from the elbow, inhale, and exhale. Now allow your body to express the breath through movement in any other way. It could be some small circles. Moving just a little more with that top arm. Eventually, let's take the arm up and hold it overhead. If we're noticing a lot of tension in the shoulder or if there's a lot of pressure into the head, place a yoga block or a blanket or pillow or bolster underneath that top arm. Let's practice breathing to that space just under the armpit, around the ribs. you'd like to experiment with that stretch in the lower trunk of the body. Straighten out the legs. Top leg just a little bit in front of the bottom leg. If we're noticing any discomfort in the low back, we might want to bring the legs more in front of us so the body is almost making the shape of an L. Or we could bend one or both knees in any combination of ways. You could even give a little bit of support underneath the knee or the thigh if that feels more comfortable. Softening the jaw, feeling as if the hip and the low back can drop down and away from the ribs. You're welcome to hold it right here if this is comfortable for your body. We do have a twist that we could experiment with today. First, let's take our top arm down to our waist. Taking that bolster or prop or blanket, whatever you might have behind you, bring it in close to the sacrum or the low back. And then maybe you can lean the buttocks back into that bolster. From here, we're rotating with the upper rib cage and trunk of the body, moving into a gentle twist with the upper body. This bolster is here to prevent us from rolling all the way back onto our spines, supporting the twist. We might want to put a pillow or a blanket under the right arm if we're feeling any discomfort here. Alternatively, we could always put the hand on the waist and protect the shoulders. Now let's notice the breath here. There's a lot of opening here in the right lung. Maybe just closing the eyes, and as we inhale, feel the breath, awareness of the breath in the right lung on the inhale. Pause, and as you exhale, notice what you feel from the left lung. Inhaling awareness on the right. Exhaling awareness on the left. And truly both lungs fill with the breath with every inhale. So shifting just the awareness, using the mind to shift from right to left. Maybe even giving the breath a little more character with color. As we inhale, seeing gold light flood the body through the right side of the body. And then exhale, seeing blue light leaving from the left lung or from the left side of the body. Let's take a couple quiet minutes to embrace the breath in this way. Inhaling right, exhaling left. Now, since we're in this small twist, if you'd like to experiment with a little bit of an energy flushing, feel free to try this technique with me. Exhale all the way. Feel your stomach soft. Now pause. Pull the belly button in just maybe half an inch, and then try to pull it up about half an inch under the ribs. Hold it 3, 2, 1, and now let that contraction go. Let's breathe easy, at least 1 or 2 easy breaths. If you'd like to try that little contraction, that little energy flushing again, exhale, pause, belly in, navel up, very tiny contraction, and then release. 1 or 2 easy breaths. Let's try maybe just 1 more. When you're ready, exhale, belly is soft. Pull the navel in. Bring it up just a little bit, just maybe half an inch of a lift. And then release. Easy breath. To safely transition out from this twist. And again, you don't have to get out of the pose. You might lie here for the rest of the class. If you're thinking of coming out of the pose, maybe we bend the knees a little bit, check in with the low back. And then slowly come into the side lying position. Let's hold it here for about 3 breaths. Embracing stillness through our transitions. To safely switch sides, we might take our top arm down to the floor and looking down at the floor as we begin to reposition the hands, hang the head nice and loose. Let's come up maybe just halfway. And this time you're going to be able to see what the pose looks like from a prone or a supine point of view. So to switch with ease, I'm going to first take my props. I'm turning my knees away from my bolster, bringing the bolster to the other side, taking this blanket I used for my knees over here, and then as I transition into side lying on the other side, I'm just gently rolling over, bringing the bolster in by the low back, and then coming down into that side lying position, using my blanket or pillow for head and neck support, sliding my shoulder blade out from under me, flat to the floor. If we're noticing any discomfort here, we could always put an extra blanket or an extra pillow under that shoulder joint and hold it right there. Once we find that comfort in the low back, in the hips, and in the legs, option to move that top arm through any range of motion. Matching movement to breath if it feels right for us. Inhaling as the arm or elbow lifts. Exhale when we take it over. At any point, we might want to hold the arm overhead for our side lying lateral flexion expression, or relax the arm onto the side Become aware of the breath in the left side lung. We may continue to embrace the posture with the knees bent or straighten the legs out, having the top leg just a little bit in front of the bottom leg. Maybe holding it here in this longer expression of a stretch. You can hold it here as long as it feels right for you, knowing that eventually this can go into a twist. If your body is already naturally doing that, feel free to transition at any time, opening up the rib cage and the heart towards the sky, and then maybe bending the arms or lengthening them out like a T. If there's any discomfort at all in the hips, we may want to put a prop under the knee or under the foot. Any discomfort in the shoulders, we might want to put something even underneath our wrist, keeping the wrist and the hand slightly supported. Now, once we get fairly situated in the pose, we notice that the left lung is a little more open than the right. So let's shift awareness from left to right with our breath. As we inhale, noticing the breath in the left lung. And as we exhale, noticing the breath from the right lung. Give the breath a little more character by giving it a color. Your body may, on its own, assign color to the breath. And if you're looking to experiment today, inhale silvery blue light into the left side of the body and exhale gold light from the right side of your body. Let's try this for just a couple quiet minutes. begin to deepen the breath for the body. If we're choosing to stay here a little longer, you may want to leave out the little detox belly contraction and let the body rest. If we're considering changing poses, let's subtly awaken the body with that gentle belly compression. Inhaling deeply. Exhale, the belly softens. Pause, pull the belly button in, and then pull it up under the ribs just for 3, 2, 1, then let it go. At least 1 or 2 easy breaths. For that little contraction, exhale, pause, navel in, navel up, under the ribs. And then release. Jaw is relaxed. Exhale, effortless. 1 more contraction. Pause. Navel in and up. And relax. To safely transition, let's take our arms, bring them in close, bend the knees in close, and then roll over onto your side. Hold it there. Let's use our top arm and hands to safely push up. Turning our knees away from our prop. Let's center our spines, come up for a moment. Let's just notice what the body is feeling. Our next pose is a restorative bridge expression. Now at any time, if we're noticing discomfort in the low back for the next pose or even our final relaxation, you can have a chair close by to put your legs up a little higher, maybe a deeper bend in the knees to shorten the hamstring. For my basic bridge setup today, I'm going to use the same blanket that I had underneath my waist and the same blanket I was using. Of course, you could use 2 pillows if that feels more comfortable. I do want to give my legs a little bit more support, so I'm going to make another type of ramp. And for this ramp, I'm taking my bolster long ways, and I'm putting the yoga block in the flattest position just behind it. And what I'm hoping to achieve is having my thigh bones come up and then my knees drape just over this. So coming down to seated, little elevation on the hips. And then maybe taking the legs over. At this point, I can already feel that I want to reposition this just a little bit. Little lift and tuck under of the tailbone. And then slowly walking the hands back, providing head and neck support. The hips could hinge a little bit back if you want to have maybe the edge of the hips just slightly tilted back to open up the gut region. Or you could have that prop flat to the sacrum Even a smaller yoga block can be used here to put a little counter pressure into the SI joint. So from where we are, just notice where your legs are. I generally like to do something a little bit like butterfly. It can be a little challenging to see here, but opening the knees, feet are a little bit separated. And then relaxing here in bridge pose. If you're noticing that the body is catching a chill, go ahead and cover yourself up. You could even use your eye pillow here over the eyes. Arms can be out like a T. We could have cactus arms. We could put the hands on the belly or even straight down to the side if that feels more comfortable. The arms might be asymmetrical. Maybe it's just one hand on the belly and another arm out to the side, allowing the body to express comfort in any organic way. Take your time. Maybe move around another 2 minutes or so and shift. Let the body work out any shifty energy. Just let it move a little bit. No matter where we are, at some point, bring the awareness to the breath, whether we are still or moving. Become deeply aware of the breath in the body. Maybe moving into 3-part breath with the front of the body, breathing into the belly, through the ribs, up to the heart, and then exhale, relax the heart, relax the ribs, and relax the belly. You can create a nice, steady, equal ratio rhythm with this. Inhaling 1, 2, 3. Exhaling 3, 2, 1. Counting faster or slower to accommodate your personal body preference. Let's take at least a couple quiet minutes just counting the breath. We can keep this steady, rhythmic breath. Or notice after your exhale, if there's a pause, maybe there's just a little bit of space after the exhale. Keeping the inhale to the exhale seamless and maybe still in 3 parts. Noticing if there's that pause just after the exhale. And you could just let the body hold still in that space, in that pause for an infinite amount of time. Knowing that at any time when the body's ready, it opens to receive the breath. Become aware of what is in that space after we exhale when the body is still. Just noticing any thoughts that come up, any sensations, any imagery, letting go of any judgment. Working with the art of observation, no judgment. Let's take a couple quiet minutes and continue to practice that space after the exhale. It could be a fraction of a moment, or it could be upwards of almost a full minute. Just allowing the body to express stillness in any way. Soften your jaw. Soften the low back. You might want to stay here a little longer. This could end up being serving for us our final relaxation pose. We want to make maybe a subtle adjustment, maybe putting a blanket or a yoga block underneath the feet or the ankles. Maybe we lift up the hips and just slide that prop out from under the hips and allow the sacrum to flatten onto the floor. This could serve as our expression of a shavasana. If we're thinking that we want to have the legs a little higher, we could always add maybe a little additional support underneath the knees or the thighs. Maybe even using our chair. Just working with whatever props you have on hand to make adjustments, moving towards optimal comfort as we're in this final stretch of relaxation for the body. There's plenty of time for you to experiment with this. If you think that you would maybe rather use a chair or change up the legs a little bit even, you could bring the feet in and do butterfly, having the legs supported on that ramp. Maybe even put a blanket over the hips, providing a little bit of gentle weight or compression. And the legs could always be asymmetrical, so we could do something a little bit like tree or a half lotus in a restorative nature. Give yourself time to move around, fidget, grab an extra blanket, grab your eye pillow. Let's take at least a couple more minutes to move around, knowing that we can change our mind at any time. Maybe just change positions, take 3 or 4 breaths, let the body digest the sensation, and if it's still a little uncertain, try something different. There's plenty of time to experiment. Let's establish some heaviness in the body. A feeling as if the body is creating a print down into the earth, slightly sinking into the earth. Once again, practicing those long exhalations. you're noticing any excessive mind chatter or any excessive busy energy in the body, try maybe 3 exhales, exhaling as if you're going to fog a mirror, pushing excessive heat or energy out from the body. If you'd like to try that with me, breathe in through your nose or mouth. And then exhale from the throat. You're welcome to do a few more of those ha breaths, creating that audible exhale to release heat, release any tension that might be hiding in the body. Visualize the breath moving out from you like a red, vaporescent light. As this energy leaves the body, we see it for a moment, and then it evaporates into the atmosphere, eliminating all tension, all stress, eliminating any busyness from the mind or body, establishing that heaviness in our seat, in the hips, establishing that heaviness behind the heart, through the shoulders, establishing that heaviness in the back of the head. We might keep the head and neck neutral or let the head fall over to one side just a little bit. Let's feel that heaviness in the hips and behind the heels, behind the knees. And maybe in our minds, saying to ourselves, I am safe. And what is it to breathe in that sensation of security, support, safety? Bring awareness to the pelvis region and maybe seeing an orange orb of light the size of a grapefruit. Feel the breath rolling through the pelvis and the hips like waves of energy rolling through the body. Affirming, I create. What is it to feel that we are the creators of our comfort, the creators of our lives? Bring awareness to the belly, noticing a warmth in this space, the energy of the abdomen bathed in gold light, affirming, I am open. Open to a new way of living, open to new ways of being. Breathe up into the heart, feeling as if the heart in the center of the chest is like a single lung, receiving the breath from the sky through the front of the heart. And as we exhale, the breath moves through the shoulder blades and burrows into the earth. Each breath rhythmically moving through the body, from the front of the chest through the back shoulders. Perhaps affirming, I am open to receive unconditional love. Bring awareness to the throat, relaxing the jaw. Maybe on every inhale, hearing the sound ah. And as we exhale, hearing from the mind the sound ta. Every cycle of breath rhythmically chanting ah, ta. Inhaling ah, exhaling ta. And naturally, if it feels right for you to experiment with vocalizing this, you're welcome to do so. Or allow the mind itself to create that voice for the mantra. Let's try this a couple minutes silently. Inhaling ah, exhaling ta, or a couple minutes chanting out loud. bring awareness to the breath and maybe feel as if the breath approaches us from a point about a foot away from the tip of our nose. As we breathe in, we see the breath like two rays of blue light, one moving into each nostril. This light moves to the very middle of the brain. And as we exhale, a single ray of white light leaves from the center of the brain, from the third eye, allowing light to filter through the mind space and seeing with the mind's eye, following that light out from the center of the forehead. Noticing anything might appear, anything might emerge in this light, or there may be nothing. Just watching, inhaling the blue light to the middle of the brain, exhaling a single ray of white light from the middle of the brain out the center of the forehead. Affirming, I see. Vision based on clarity, intuition, wisdom, and insight. I see. Let's deepen our breath. With a fraction of effort, inviting just a little more of the breath into the body. Let's try one big inhale and hold it for just a couple seconds, from the belly through the ribs to the heart. Let it go after a couple seconds. Roll the breath out of the body. Inhaling from the belly up. Pause, 3, 2, 1, then let it go. You're welcome to keep that pattern of breathing a few more times, using that short holding pattern after the inhale to gently awaken the body, the nervous system. Noticing any parts of the body that may be inspired by that breath to move. You may want to wiggle the toes. Maybe circle out the ankles and stretch your legs a little bit. Making a note of what position the body is in, knowing where all of our supports are. Where are the arms? Where are the legs and the feet? And depending on where we are, moving appropriately to eventually maybe bend the knees or straighten the legs. Just allowing the body to counter any posture that we've been in for a prolonged period of time. You're welcome to begin moving through any organic sensations, anything that you think the body might appreciate, preparing ourselves to eventually come up to seated. Let's give ourselves at least another 2 or 3 minutes to move in any natural way. Moving the whole body at some point. Let's roll over onto one side into this side lying child's pose or a sleeping child's pose. ready, you may want to find your top arm for support. Slowly turn in towards the floor, onto elbows or hands. Let's use our arms to slowly walk us up, coming around into any easy seated position. Rolling our shoulders down and back. Check in with your head and neck. Let's bring our hands together in our seal of physical reverence. Anjali Mudra. Let's draw in just a few deep breaths for the body, inhaling through the nose or the mouth. Exhale from the throat. Maybe even a sigh of relief for the body. Let the shoulders rise with the breath. And now a final exhale, drop the shoulders. From here we can close together. Namaste, everyone. Now please take your time as our class is closing, and if you'd like to journal a little bit, perhaps 3 points to note. What did you like? Was there anything that the body really didn't like? And then, of course, any questions, any images that came up. Perhaps noting if any visual imagery or any of the sounds have stayed with us. Making note of this in your journal. I thank you for joining me today in our Restorative Masterclass. Namaste, everyone.